Wow, dude. Derek. Wow. Well, thanks for hopping on the roller coaster ride with me today.
I love roller coasters, brother.
Yeah, we're gonna go all over the map. It's gonna be hype.
You can go as high as low you want to go. I'm an open book.
Let's do it. So tell us a little bit about where you're at right now in life. Meaning, what are you doing on the day to day?
On the day to day, extremely stacked with work in life. I'm a cannabis smoker of 30 years, and I'm taking a break because I need to be extra focused and extra clear. I was editing. So anyways, I'm a video producer.
Yeah.
I've been producing videos for about 30 years.
Wow. So cannabis and video production.
Yeah, there's a correlation.
Years. What else you been doing for 30 years?
Surfing and snowboarding and, trying to be the best lover I possibly can.
Yeah.
So those are
when were you born?
Oh, 1980.
1980? What year? Month?
January
1980. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks.
So you're doing videography full time, taking a break from the ganja. What else does your day to day look like?
Well, last night I was up till 1 editing, and then this morning I was up at 6 to film at Daybreaker, which is a daytime sunrise party that is sober. I'm on your podcast today, which is great. And then I film a podcast here in town.
Yeah.
The Aubrey Marcus podcast. We have an episode this afternoon with a great guest called Rabbi Mark Gaffney, and we're going to talk about Dune 2.
Dude.
Yeah.
You're going to be speaking with a rabbi about a movie.
Yeah.
Where's the correlation there? I'd love to know.
The correlation there is Mark Gaffney is really good at breaking down stories.
Yeah.
Essentially, according to the philosophy that he studies in the Kabbalah about Eros, that everything is a love story. Everyone's story is a love story because it's all about how we connect to each other, whether it's, protons and neutrons magnetizing together, or the planets, why they're in orbit. And each person that you meet has a unique Eros. Like you and I talking right now, there is no other Greg or Derek Smith in the universe having this conversation. So what he does is he correlates that into how these love stories show up in films, which is a treat for me because I studied film and I love film.
Yeah.
And I love his philosophy. So it's going to be a treat.
Dude, that's incredible. I never would have thought about that, but that's why I think that this community that we're in here is so incredibly eye-opening and inspirational. Like the fact that you compare a movie with a rabbi and then have this amazing story behind it. Like, what is that, man? It's amazing. How they get, what? Yeah, go ahead. What are you going to say?
Who writes this?
Yeah.
The script of our lives and how all these characters kind of weave together, magically, kind of like how we met through a mutual friend from San Diego who I hadn't seen in a while, who threw a birthday. And then I ran into like 3 or 4 people that were there that I knew that didn't relate to each other at all. And then here we are.
Yeah, it's freaking crazy, bro. It's so crazy. So other than the recording, what else do you have going on? Because I know you got a lot.
There's a lot going on. It's mainly each episode is weekly, and then I also am working with other videos.
Like the thing this morning.
The thing this morning was very synchronistic because I usually don't film other stuff outside of the Warrior Poet and Chakaruna Media. But again, a really good friend of mine said, hey, my buddy's doing this unique breathwork ceremony at Daybreaker where they actually do beatboxing. And then that correlates with the rhythm of the breathing.
Wow.
So my powerful friend mentioned these people, and I'm like, there's a connection here. And when I talked to them, we had several mutual friends. So when I showed up at Daybreaker to film with them, they killed it. It was amazing. But also, like, there were several people that I knew at the festival, at the party today that knew them.
Yeah.
So it's all, again, like everything's just kind of weaved together beautifully.
Dude, that's synchronicity, universal alignment.
It is.
Right?
And it's almost not surprising anymore. I think it's very prevalent here in Austin.
Yeah.
Like you said, the community and tribe, there's a certain, I guess we expect it, but if you had to tune a giant dial, like a radio dial, it's a very specific frequency. And I'm talking a lot of woo-woo stuff here, but it's also scientific.
Yep.
Who we magnetize with and why do we run into the same people over and over in different places and how those stories expand together.
When you say there's a lot of science behind it, care to share a tidbit of that?
That's a really good question because I think there is a relationship between spirituality and science that we're just beginning to really uncover. In the ancient Hindu Vedas, they were talking about quantum mechanics and quantum physics, but in like deities and, karma and the wheel of samsara. And in this case, the law of attraction, right? It can be very woo-wooey, like The Secret, like, oh, if you think and visualize and manifest, these things will come into your life. Yes, but you have to do the work. So scientifically, it's more like, how do you tune your conscious, right? If you're a hammer, everything's a nail. Looks like a nail. If you buy a white 4Runner, what happens? You start seeing white 4Runners everywhere. So if you do visualize these things, your mind tunes into focusing on those things appearing in your life. And I think that is how our neurons work in our brain and how the prefrontal cortex works and how our consciousness works. That is the science behind it. It's like a biochemical thing. But it feels magical when people enter your life, when you think of someone and then they call you and you haven't talked to them in like 7 years.
Yeah.
So there's something esoteric but also scientific. And I think it's exciting when you look at it from both angles.
Okay. Yeah. No, I agree. It's, we are just scratching the surface on this type of thing.
I agree.
And it's fascinating and a really fun ride to be a part of, especially here in Austin, because we're, I think, at the tip of the spear when it comes to this stuff.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
Yeah, unless there's some tribes out there that know something we don't know. But the tribes, the real tribes that are like isolated from humanity and stuff, they don't have the tech that we have. So they're not learning as fast. So I would say it's safe to say that we're at the tip of the sphere.
We are, because there's something really beautiful about the convergence of technology and spirituality and community that is happening in Austin. I mean, how many podcasts are coming out of here? You have so many popular podcasts here, and great thinkers, great movers and shakers. And I never thought I'd ever be here, and somehow I ended up here. And things are moving very well and very exciting. And maybe in history, we'll look back upon this time in Austin as kind of like the time when, the hippies were in Haight-Ashbury and San Francisco in the 60s and had that big movement,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like you said, the tip of the spear, and it's a very exciting time to be here.
And how odd is it that this is a political city?
The capital of Texas.
The capital.
The blue dot in a red state.
Yeah.
It's a very balanced. I lived in San Diego for 17 years, and there's, with the military there, and then also like more of the California liberals, there was this balance that was really nice. And I feel that Austin has that, but that has a Southern hospitality undertone. So it's even more welcoming and more tolerant. I make a joke. It's like you walk in a bar in Austin and you have like the cowboy, the hippie, the transgender person, and then the hipster, and everyone's getting along. And, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Well said, well articulated as well.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, very cool. So, and then when it comes to occupational stuff, revenue generating activities, what else have you got going on?
Right now,
they're okay to share. Because I know we talked about some other things.
Yeah. I'm sort of involved in the psychedelic renaissance now. So I'm active in that realm of things. I am, filming and editing this podcast. And as of recently, per our conversation, I'm starting to look at what kind of real estate I can get involved in to diversify myself a little bit occupationally. And that's why I think, stopping the cannabis for a while and having a little more bandwidth to tackle all these things, looking at the next 5 years is like, how do I build my empire and have a residual income so eventually I can live somewhere that I can surf every day? Because Austin's great, and it always, I think, will be a headquarters for me.
Yeah.
So those are the big goals on the horizon right now.
You said to have a little bit more bandwidth. Was the cannabis stifling your bandwidth?
Yes. In certain ways, cannabis and I have had a really beautiful relationship for 30 years. The good, the bad, and the ugly. There was a time where I'd wake up and just hit the bong immediately, and then the rest of my day was like, whatever. And then when I get really creative with my video editing, the cannabis is such an ally. I really dive in deep of like, what do these symbols really mean? What is the poetry? What is the underlying themes? What are the motifs that I'm allowing people to feel when I make my art? So that's actually the hardest part. When I'm editing something creative, that's the only time I really crave a little bit of cannabis. But what I'm realizing is, as a man, cannabis is actually very high in estrogen. So when you lay off the cannabis, your testosterone levels are higher. Then I'm waking up in the morning quicker. My dreams come back. So I'm getting symbolism from my superconscious, because that's how our superconscious talks to us, through our dreams. And I just feel my house becomes impeccable, clean. And I just feel like it can, a little more energy, a little more clarity.
Wow.
It's just a slight advantage, but 5% or 10% over an extended amount of time
Compounds.
It compounds.
Yeah. Wow. Well, good for you. And I know it's probably not easy to stop. Or
It's it was actually easier than I thought. I've taken 2 weeks off, and then I went snowboarding last week. And snowboarding and smoking weed to me is like peanut butter and jelly. Like there's something very ceremonial about smoking at first you get warmed up throughout the day, and then at 2 p.m. I smoke. And there's something about how I can feel every toe and every part of my body connected to, especially if I have a good song playing it becomes like a dance.
Wow.
So then I smoked over the weekend, and then now I'm back into clarity again. Honestly, coffee is more difficult.
It is.
I think it's more addictive. That morning ritual of having that cup is and I'm also trying to wean off of that a little bit too. I feel like my adrenals are complaining.
I'm 1 week today.
Good for you.
Yeah.
How's that been?
You're right. It's hard as shit. It's really hard to say no. Because there's coffee there. I almost poured a cup and drank it. It was so easy. It's right there. It's everywhere you go, dude.
It's right there. Yeah. And it's just something about that ritual. And I do the Huberman, protocol where you wait 90 minutes after you wake up to drink coffee, because when you wake up, your body starts pumping cortisol. What do I need to do? Where do I need to go? And if you drink coffee before then, you push your cortisol levels so high that you end up crashing later. So if you wait past 90 minutes, your body stabilizes the cortisol, and then you're able to use the caffeine a little more efficiently.
Okay.
And then, I love coffee.
So have you said no today to coffee?
No, I needed it today. But I waited 90 minutes, and
you had some.
Yeah, at the event, the cannabis first, and then coffee later. It just really helped with the shoot and being in the energy of that event, which was beautiful. The breath work and the yoga and the dancing, and I'm carrying around a camera on a Ronin, so it's it definitely helped today.
It's amazing. It sounds like a really good time.
It was amazing.
How does somebody get plugged into the next one? Do you know?
You can just buy a ticket and go.
But what do they look for online?
Daybreaker. So
Daybreaker.
You go on Daybreaker, and you just buy a ticket. They're in different cities all the time. They're in town because we have South by Southwest going on.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind. The vibe was really, everyone in the morning is just energized, and there's all this light coming in, and everyone was wearing white, and then you got the kids running around too. It's a sober event, which is really fun. An ecstatic dance. Do you do ecstatic dance at all?
In my living room.
In your living room?
All the time, dude.
Fair enough.
Just freaking let it fly.
You're not going to do it with a crowd?
I would do it with a crowd in a second.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm all about.
I know. You just send it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Why do you ask? Just curious.
Oh, because
saying I should do it,
some
right?
people are very reserved about ecstatic dancing and just letting it all out on the dance floor. We're so concerned about how we look and how we're moving. But I think the magic lies in surrendering that to getting to the point where, you dance a little bit, you're very conscious, but if you keep dancing, all of a sudden you get into a trance, and then all of a sudden you're not moving your body, the music's moving your body. It's like, if you can occupy the conscious mind, then the subconscious comes out, whether it's like you're thinking about something on a long drive, or you're washing the dishes, and you're having this epiphany. If you can occupy the conscious mind, this is what drumming is in ceremonies. When they're drumming, you listen to the beat of the drum, or if you're singing and paying attention to that, then you allow your subconscious stuff to come up, and then you can do the real work.
Take note of what Derek just said. What's something somebody could do in their home to replicate that?
Exactly what you said. Put on some music. Dance when you're doing the chores.
Yeah.
Dance when you're cleaning up. Anything that's going to occupy the mind. That's what the beauty of cleaning, or mowing the lawn or building something, I guess playing an instrument falls into that category too.
It's freaking badass, man. I love it. I'm getting so many golden nuggets from this episode already. It's great.
Yeah, we're all about that gold, son.
Yeah, we like the gold. We like it. So we got to explain a little bit of what's happening with the attire. This is one thing I like to cover.
Cool.
When our guests come on. So what do you got rocking today, and why?
I'm rocking my festival stuff. I have a Android Jones psychedelic divine feminine shirt. This is a pendant I got at my first Burning Man. Someone gifted this to me, and the Texas Eclipse Festival is coming up, so I'm wearing this because it's reminding me of how I want to show up, and I'm helping plan a camp, so that's exciting. I have a wristband here that I got after my last ayahuasca ceremony. It just reminds me of the epiphanies I had during that. Couple rings. Again, this all-seeing eye ring was given to me at my second burn. We had a camp called the Unholy Trinity.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's
freaking cool, man.
Just like Native Americans, when you wear the feathers and you wear these adornments, they almost feel like amulets or talismans that remind you of how you show up and express yourself and the power that we have through expression. They're almost magical. I laugh about putting on my magical rings before I go out and, swag.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
It's true.
peacocking.
You
Yeah.
got any king rings?
King rings.
Yeah, would you label any of those a king ring by chance?
Explain king ring. I haven't
King
heard the
ring
term.
is something that gives you your masculine power.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say this, the all-seeing eye in this.
Yeah.
I have a raven skull too. It's very, I guess, shamanic. Ravens, they say, are like the intermediaries between the physical and the spiritual world. And yeah, so
Why doesn't everybody have a raven in their house then? Why aren't we talking to ravens?
I've been raving about it for a long time, and no one's listening to me.
You've been
Bad pun.
raving.
Bad pun, ladies and gentlemen. I promise it's the last one. No, it's interesting coming on the podcast. As their audience is probably realizing, I'm very into the spiritual world of things, but I also feel like I have an equal part in the default world, and I feel like Austin has a lot of those kind of people.
What do you mean? You mean the material world?
Yeah.
The earthly world?
The earthly world.
Tell us how you have a part in that. What does that mean?
I love your questions. We have to navigate. People like to say, like in quantum mechanics or quantum physics, how everything is really vibration.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, in an atom or a cell or anything, there's 99% open space, So we're really just, this thing that we call material is actually, if you zoom in all the way, there's actually a lot of space and things. So some people like to say, it's just an illusion and reality is not real per se. We're kind of in a simulation that we all co-create together.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. This is the rules of physics and the rules of this existence that we live in. We have to navigate this. Like, if you want to be, super esoteric, you still got to drive on the highway. You still got to, if I try to put my hand through this table, it's not going to happen. So I think there's a beauty between, some people are either too much one way or the other. I think balancing the world of our dreams and the world of our meditations and, what we do on a daily basis, go to work, have to function in society to make money. Money is like the points in this video game.
Yeah.
You have to play the game, but realize it's a game and we're here, if you look at life like a game, then games are made to be fun. They're made to be fun.
Derek, if money wasn't the points, what would the points be?
In a society where,
Removed it.
in a different society, like what Burning Man does, there's no money at the burn. What you do is you just gift your time, material things you make, shelter, sustenance. In a bartering society, it would be, what are you showing up as? How are you giving? That would be my answer to that question. But in this case, we've built a system on money, and that is created or destroyed by the Fed or credit certain debt in a bank account. We're pumping all these numbers into the system now, and life, it's kind of like the modern day slavery in the sense that we're restricted by the amount of money we can or can't make and how expensive society is. So,
Derek, bear with me on this one.
yes.
We'll see if we connect on this piece here. If you were to say what currency could be if there was no currency, tangible, I'm talking tangible currency, what would you say humans would resort to? If we weren't allowed to give each other things or pay money for things, what would be the currency?
That's a tremendous question. I think there'd be chaos. It'd be violence, taking from others instead of giving to others, because I guess the difference is you're either going to have abundance mindset, which is utopian, or a scarcity mindset with it, which is dystopian. And I think there's balance in a lot of things in life. So some people think one way, some people think the other. So I don't know what would replace that specifically as a tangible. I mean, you could always think about gold and other things, or trade. Like if you're a farmer and you have plenty of tomatoes and you have a surplus of those, you give them to your neighbor that has a surplus of chickens and they give you the eggs. So like a trading barter system like we used to have in a lot of societies back in the day.
Yeah. Now let's eliminate the fact, let's take another piece off the table. Let's say we can't take or give.
Oof.
And then we're all kind of bypassers.
We can't take nor give. We're all bypassers. Then we have to be self-sustaining.
We communicate.
We'll
talk with one another as humans.
That's a deep question. It would be radical self-reliance.
Radical self-reliance.
If I'm going to feed my fucking family, I have to grow the food or I have to hunt the boars.
Yeah.
Then, someone's not going to come take that from me, nor can I give the excess stuff before it rots or before I put it in a freezer. That's a really deep question.
Dude.
Never gave that thought.
And what about energy? Where does energy come into play?
Energy comes into play of everything.
With everything. Here's what I was maybe alluding to a little bit here. in a very roundabout way, what if I were to say, curious to know your thoughts, energy would be the currency? What would that look like? What if energy was our currency?
I think that is
How would
already.
people be?
I think that is already the case because
Tell me about it, dude.
so in the more woo-woo-y esoteric circles, when they ask like, hey, like if I'm going to do this thing for you, what would be the energy exchange? It's referring to money. If you think of currency, the word currency, it's like the currents of a river.
Yeah.
You know, you think of currents of electricity.
Moving.
So those words are there, you know, moving. So
Yeah.
that's a really good point. I mean, I think there's energy behind money is just the digital representation, the numerical, the mathematical representation of these energy exchanges.
Yes.
You know, if I'm going to give my energy and time to you, I expect a certain amount of energy and, you know, time as well, I guess, space and time from you. That's a really deep question.
Dude, you just said something pretty profound. And I'm going to ask you a question based off what you just said about how money is a numerical representation of energy exchange. That's pretty good stuff, man. Thanks for saying that. So would you say that people with more energy attract more money? I don't know.
Depends on how they're using their energy. Because, I've never been a super wealthy man. I spent the last 20 years in a hedonic lifestyle where I'm just, as soon as I would get that money, I would spend it on life experience, like surf trips, snowboarding trips, dates, festivals, you know, chasing those peak experiences. So I had a lot of energy for those things, but it didn't translate directly to the numbers in my bank account, the ones and zeros. And again, you have energy is very, you know, it's nuanced in the sense that there could be energy directed towards something very positive or very negative, just like positive and negative like charges in electricity.
Dude, there's so many types of energy out there.
There's so many.
There's electrical energy.
Yeah.
Right? There's spiritual energy.
Yeah.
There's what else?
Well, like spiritual energy would be your chi, your prana, your mana, you know, that kind of stuff. We are bioelectric.
Physical energy?
We are bioelectric.
Which falls under the electric.
Yeah, so there is crossover with all that. I guess energy is a very broad umbrella. But you're right. You know, it's quite infinite. And, you know, Tesla was proving that you can find energy in the air. You could actually light up light bulbs just from the what are they, the quarks or the electrons in the air itself. So, it's really an interesting subject because there's an intelligence to it. Like, for instance, when you look into a computer screen, you're looking at light, and light is giving you all this information, and it's entertaining you, and you're communicating with others. And right now, the only reason we can talk to our audience is because of that energy. You know, the reason why we have these lights on right now, those cameras running. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but that is a little tangent that you got me on.
Oh, it's freaking great, man. Yeah. Where is it going to go with this about, oh, snap, I lost it. That's okay. It had to do with energy.
What does energy mean? Are you a type of person that you think you generate a lot of wealth through your own energy?
Oh, boom, I got it. Well, okay. So I think sales is a transfer of energy.
Sales.
So sales that.
100%.
And then Rob Dyrdek, this is my freaking big aha moment here. Rob Dyrdek said that he likes to make his day have as least resistance as possible.
Beautiful.
He likes to have his schedule to have as least resistance. And what I think he means, challenge me on this. What I think he means is that anything that takes away from his energetical flow, aka negative energy, perhaps, is what he likes to eliminate. Which begs the question, is there some kind of like if we were to draw this out on a piece of paper, right? Here's our energy tunnel. And then, like, why do we want that? Why do we want free-flowing energy? What does that do for us? And I think it has to do with optimization and living at our peak. Living at our peak, right? But you've got to want that. Some people don't want that, man. Some people don't care. They're okay with the sludge, or they're consumed by darkness, and their tunnel is just like just cluttered with crap. And then you got people that are like, no, get rid of all the crap. I want only goodness, and I want to be able to excel and just be as fast as possible and as bright as possible. You have that too. It's like, why, dude? Why?
I love that. I agree with all of
and
that.
It's all choice. People make the choice, don't they?
There's a tremendous amount of power in choice. I agree with Rob, and I agree with everything you said. It's very...
What would you change?
would I change?
That's what I said, if anything.
No, I'll just add I'll add to it. The Taoists, are you familiar with Taoism?
Monks.
Yeah, the Taoist monks. Taoism is very much about the watercourse way. Like a river flows and it goes around rocks. It cuts through rock and it goes to the lowest places. And what Rob is talking about is going with the flow. You go around resistance. Anything that's resistant, you flow around it. He wants his day to be flowy and not rigid. And I feel like you're on that side of the spectrum too.
Yeah. Remove the resistance. In a business standpoint, the way to do that is through leverage. A who or a what. You implement a who or a what, aka a system or a tool, or a who, which is like a person, right? You hire somebody. That's how you remove resistance in business. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, how do you remove negative energy resistance in life to clear up that tunnel, that magical tunnel that I'm talking about? If you were to draw a picture of it, right?
It's a powerful tunnel.
How do you remove it? How do you get rid of it? What do you do?
Well, you said it. It's choice.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it comes down to choice, because in any given moment when we're given stimulus, we have the power on how we react to the stimulus. And this goes down to all
respond.
It's how we respond. The ability to respond.
Yeah.
So we can either step forward in courage or step back in fear. In other words, we can react to situation positively or negatively. And that goes back to we're talking about the law of attraction. It's think positive things will happen. It's like you have a choice in every moment to choose positivity over negativity. And I think we're talking about, there's the symbolism of electricity and currency and all these things that we've been talking about, energy.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I think that, like you said, choice. Ultimately, that is free will. That we have the ability to choose. And I think it's almost unique to the human race. I think certain animals have it too, but most aren't conscious of it.
They're not conscious
of it, of the ability.
Most animals?
I think
most humans. Because I'm onto something with that statement.
Like you said earlier, there's the ones that just don't. Why do you think people live in the sludge? Is it just a lack of information?
Dude.
Or a lack of drive? Or
it's going to be a few things.
Yeah.
It's going to be, I think faith is one of them, dude. I think that's the core. If you don't have faith that you can change, I don't think it's going to happen. It starts within, right? They always say it starts within. If I don't have the belief that, I have the ability to change my circumstance and environment and be better, then it's not going to start at all. That's the catalyst.
Yeah.
Faith.
The difference between faith and hope. Have you always been like a faithful person, or was there something that switched for you?
Faith is like a more of a controllable thing, where hope is you're leaving it in the hands of something else. Faith is like, no, I get to choose to be faithful. If I'm hopeful, it's like, I hope so. I hope it happens. It might not happen. It might not. Yeah, we don't do that. I don't use hope.
And we're coming back to choice again.
Yeah.
Choice is the difference between faith and hope.
And you know what else is nuts? Let's talk about the power of one, okay? We could be one conversation away from changing our lives forever. We could be one word switch away from changing our lives forever, from switching the word hope to the word faith.
That's tremendous.
Just one word.
It's funny how something so simple can take such a big trajectory.
Well, check this out. There's a principle we follow in business that the success of our business is embedded in the most tiniest of details. Well, what about your life too? Why doesn't that coincide with our lives? It does. It does. Change your language, change your life, change one word. It could change the trajectory of everything for you, right? It's that simple. Words matter. You know this.
They're so powerful because we think in words.
Yeah, dude.
We're programmed, and you can't try to have a thought without using language. So I think there's a lot going on here, right? Yeah, there's a lot going on here. Especially if you speak different languages, you have an ability to broaden your horizons. And the word spell, you're casting a spell. So when you say something and you say something and it puts that, if you say like the pink elephant, someone's going to picture that. Or if you say you're an idiot, there is an emotional charge behind that the person receives, and you're talking about sales, right? You create this emotion in their mind by words and expression. And we have infinite vast minds, but we're limited by the words that we use.
And sad to say, in school, they don't teach us about building our credit. They don't teach us about personal finances, and they don't teach us about the power of words. That you've seen those studies on YouTube, perhaps, where they talk to a plant and they say negative things to it, and then it ends up dying and being decrepit. And then you say a bunch of nice things to a plant, and it thrives. Or if you put nice words on a bottle of water, then freeze it, the crystals, when it freezes, are beautiful. Whereas if you put negative words in a bottle of water, then freeze it, the crystals are all jagged and off and weird looking.
It's so powerful. That is, for those of you guys want to look this up, it's Dr. Emoto is the guy that did those studies.
Countless studies.
So incredible, and it's magical, and it's hard to even digest it because it's so obvious, you know?
Dude, another light bulb, bro. This is great. So let's say you want to be a Kung Fu master, okay?
All right.
Kung Fu master. Think about how precise they do one thing over and over and over again, to where they might shave a millisecond off of a punch, or like move their body a millimeter in another direction to get the perfect, and they do it thousands of times, right? Well, when it comes to the way we think and the way we talk, why aren't we speaking with precision like that? Why are we doing other things like that? If we want to master ourselves, master our body, our mind, and our spirit, why aren't we practicing things to that level? Why do we leave it up to chance? Why aren't we fucking Kung Fu? My bad. I'm getting hype right now.
Good.
Like Kung Fu masters with different aspects that are important to us in life.
Yeah. There's a lot of things there. You know, the monotony and redundancy of repetition. People don't want to put in the reps. But you can't do anything unless you do the work. It's the dedication to consistency is more powerful than just having a brilliant idea. Because a brilliant idea without execution, without those reps, you're going to get better and better and better, and you're going to hone it to the point. The thing about Kung Fu, and I've trained Kung Fu for many, many years, is, or like most martial arts, is that you do these movements over and over and over again so that they become, you know, and you create the neural pathways so that you react. So when someone throws a punch, you don't have to think. You've done that movement so many times that the body automatically knows how to react. Yeah. So you say, why don't people do this more? I mean, again, it just comes down to like that choice you're talking about earlier. It's maybe people just don't have the information or the capacity or the belief or the faith that they can pull these things off.
Imagine if our imagine if our parents taught us how to be like Kung Fu masters, but when it came to personal finances.
Boom. That's tying it back to,
How do they train us to do that? How could they train us? Is there any curriculum that's like that? How to be financial masters? By the time we graduate high school, it's just like boom, automatic. You can identify a good deal, a bad deal, what not to spend your money on. You know, like what with money.
You seem to be pretty good with money and, you know, the financial world. What was it? Did your parents instill that in you? Or it something that, were you hungry to figure it out on your own? What was the driving factor?
Yeah, the sequence of events was I reached a peak point in my life. I was in Navy SEAL school out in Buds in California, and it was freaking awesome. And then the carpet got pulled out from underneath me due to a hip injury, and I was lost. So I went from being really proud and pumped up and excited about life, being in an environment full of like ripped dudes that just want to kick some butt, be American, whatever, right? I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden I'm like down in the dumps again. I'm like, crap, dude, what am I going to freaking do now? And then I read a book. I don't know what compelled me to read this book, but it was called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Good. Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
That was a good one. That was a big pivotal cornerstone of a book.
Yeah. For a lot of people.
The timing of it.
Mm-hmm. So I read that book, and it showcased what money mindset was. And I'm like, holy nikes, dude. My dad would talk kind of like this guy. And I'm like, the life that I grew up with, I think, like, I didn't go on vacations, dude, with my family. I went on 2, but they were paid for by my mom's company, you know? Like, we didn't really do those wholesome family things. And the money was always a thing. And it was like darkness. And my house was jacked up, living in the house. And the kids were making fun of me because I had a tarp on my roof and all that shit. I'm like thinking to myself, what if we just had more money? And I'm like, dude, that's my new path. I'm going to build fucking wealth. And I'm going to have a nice house. And I'm going to thrive. And I'm never going to say, oh, sorry, son, we can't afford that. I'm going to say, let's make it happen, dude. And that was the day that I made the decision to fucking take off. And then not the next year or the next year or the next year. It was like 4 years of reading voraciously and then making 35,000 phone calls a year in real estate, getting my teeth kicked in, going flat broke in 2018 because I wasn't getting enough sales under my belt. And all of a sudden, 2019 is when my business took off. So years after I read that first book, years of pain, of awkwardness, being in a new city, broken relationships with girlfriends, finally, things changed for me, dude. And then here I am today.
That's massive. So the pivotal moment, ladies and gentlemen, the hip injury, reading the book, and then we were talking about earlier, reps. He turned into a kung fu master by reading these books, repetition, repetition, repetition. And when he was hit the rock bottom, that Navy SEAL came, that gumption, that tenacity was able to, you were able to use that to create your empire.
And let's talk a little bit about more about choice for a second. I had the choice to either go off to the fleet or stay in the Navy SEAL community, even though my job in the Navy SEAL community was picking up every single guy every single day that quit buds. So these dudes were depressed. One guy was like, my mom won't talk to me because I quit. And they were down in the dumps, and I had to pick them up in this big-ass van. But why did I stay? Because I still wanted to adopt and be in the environment of the SEALs and absorb as much as I could about how they think and how they operate. And I chose to do that on purpose, even though it sucked. I could have chosen like an easier route, right? There's a lot of easier things to do. But I wanted that for the educational benefits. And then I chose a lot of it's choice. It's 50-50, right? It's all your perspective.
That's true. It's either a yes or a no, and if that's the choice, right?
Damn, dude, it really does always boil down to choice. Freaking always.
It does.
It's crazy.
And, there's something really beautiful about your story because you chose a more difficult path, and we know that in the difficult path is where you grow and learn. When we choose the easier path, and this is the thing, like sometimes flow state will confuse, I don't want the resistance, and maybe I'll just go around this. There's a time and place where you need to just break through that. So knowing when to have faith that you can break through something or just like take a step back and flow around situations, I think is the choices we need to be making in this life.
How do you dare get in the position and the mindset to be aware of the choices, to have that 360-degree awareness so you, at any given point in time, you know when to put your foot on the gas, to pump the brakes, to pause?
That's a beautiful question.
How do you do that?
I take a hot bath in the dark and I do thinking. But so, for instance, I surf, and that's my obsession, and snowboarding is too. But so if I see a massive storm that's about to hit Hawaii or about to go somewhere else, first it's the initial intuition of the feeling of wanting that experience. And then like, yes. Then, so it's intuition and then it's logic. Like, how will I logically pull this off financially? Look at the meteorology. Are the winds in the right direction? Do I have a place to stay that is close to the surf? Do I have responsibilities I need to handle? But so it starts with the feeling of intuition. How badly do I want this? And then how will I feel if I get it? And how will I feel if I don't get it? And I pay close attention to both. Sometimes the juice is not worth the squeeze. So it's a matter of tapping in with my intuition, which is more of a feminine quality, and then executing with logic, which is more of a masculine quality. So it's like dancing with these polarities. That's how I make my decisions.
Yeah,
they've been really awesome because sometimes, it's there's something between like the fear of something or the intuition of pulling it off, and there's a fine line sometimes between that. But life is exciting, and like sometimes I just really like to send it. How would I feel if I didn't pull this off? It'd be kind of boring. And sometimes the resistance is there and it's really difficult to pull something off, but you know how it is. The greater the risk, the greater the reward.
And that forces us, knowing that, it forces us to focus on the process.
The process, yep.
The fun part is, hey, I might win.
I like that.
Yeah.
What if we won?
Right.
What if it all worked out?
Isn't that exciting?
That's exciting. And to tell yourself that, and when you're in the darkest depths of your dark night of the soul and there's nothing left, it's like, well, what if my greatest dreams come true? What if it all works out? What if it's better than I can imagine? And that feeling.
Yeah. That's fire, dude.
And but it's maintaining that feeling.
Yeah.
Reps.
Yeah.
Constantly like thinking about that and feeling. I don't think we're programmed for that. Our consciousness is millions of years of evolution looking for the bad situation, looking for the snake, looking for the threat. Yeah. Safe. So we're living in such a safe society now that I think this is why people turn to drugs or the sludge or just these escape mechanisms, gambling, sex, or whatever it may be. because we have it so easy that our warrior nature or our hunter nature is not being fulfilled. So to go after the things that really are kind of slightly out of your reach, slightly risky, is where you'll grow and you'll get the most fulfillment.
Yeah, like when people focus on the small stuff, they get tripped up over the little drama things. And I think 99% of the time it's simply because they don't have their eye on a big enough prize. Yeah. It's like, wait, you're getting tripped up over that? It's like, dude,
what's the big prize for you now? What's the big prize that you're eyeing?
For me?
Yeah. What really lights you up?
For me?
Yeah.
What lifts me up? Inspiring people and showing them that there's better out there.
Wow. You're being of service.
Yeah.
You know? I think you're doing a good job.
Thanks, too. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm doing it a bunch of different ways. And whenever I am on that path, I'm doing it whatever way that is. It's like I'm the most excited, thrilled, and fired up about life.
Yes.
Yeah. And on that note, we're going to go into part 2 here.
Part 2.
Derek, we got to talk about your life. This is the part that I think that our guests enjoy the most, if they're comfortable talking about it, okay?
Absolutely.
We want to this is like a legacy project for you. This is something that if you've got kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, they can listen to this and almost be a part of your life story, okay? We want to paint as detailed picture as possible for them as well as you. So let's throw way back here. Where were you born?
I was actually born in Puerto Rico.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, my mom was working there at the time for a movie theater called Womeco, and after a month, we moved to Miami.
Okay.
My mom's Chilean. Yeah, my mom's family's Chilean, and she met my father in college in Florida, and he's American, white. And we grew up in Miami till I was 7. And then my dad was in the fast lane, and like the marriage was falling apart, and like it was Florida. And so he sold his shipping company based on the advice from a psychic astrologer. And we all moved to Brazil because he wanted to be an expat. And Brazil in the late 80s was kind of a mess. Like the first day I went to go to school, they had stolen our truck, you know. And so we actually went over to Chile to spend Christmas with my mom's family. And Chile was super balanced economically and conservative and clean, very different than wild Brazil. So we thought, well, let's move here. So we ended up moving to Chile and spent 5 years there. And then, but at the time, you know, in the 80s, there's no internet, and like all the great movies and shows and candies and foods, all the exciting stuff was happening in the United States. Like if a movie came out in the States, I remember when Batman came out with Michael Keaton, it came out in the States, and it took a year to get to Chile, you know? So we were like delayed all these things. So that was the exciting thing for us. So we were asking my father once, we were in a cabin in the mountains after skiing all day in the Chilean Andes, and we were like, well, would you ever move back to the States? And where would we live if we moved back to the States? And as a joke, he said, Alaska or Hawaii. And then we started making this joke like, oh, when we moved to Hawaii, we're going to do this. When we moved to Hawaii, we're going to do that. But my dad was a very adventurous guy. So all of a sudden it became like, well, why couldn't we move there? So he flew out to Hawaii and we checked out the islands, and Maui was the one. So we packed up and moved to Maui. I was 12 turning 13. So had a really profound, jarring effect on who I thought I was becoming. And it toughened me up.
Well, let's backtrack a little here. So your parents, what's your mom's name?
Pamela.
Pamela? What's your dad's name?
Neil.
Pamela and Neil.
But I always called him Happy. That was his name because he was born on Easter Sunday. So Happy and Pam.
And if he ever becomes a grandpa, they're going to call him Happy Pappy.
Yeah. Yeah, Happy Pappy.
It's awesome.
Damn right.
So Pamela and Neil met when they were in college.
They did.
In Florida. Okay.
Right.
1 month in Puerto Rico. 7 years in Miami? How long?
That is correct.
7 years. And what was it like? Did you live with both your parents those 7 years in Miami? Right?
Yeah, my dad did very well. So we had money. We were always provided for. And in those years...
Did you like going home after school?
That's a really good question. Yes, I did.
What made it enjoyable? What made it okay and safe?
We had a pool. And we had friends in the neighborhood. And
remember any of those kids' names?
Yeah. My first sleepover was at a guy named John Byrne across the street from my house.
Still talk to him?
Not too much.
Okay.
But what's interesting about my story is that after spending all this time in Maui, you know, we ran out of money. So eventually we went back to Miami. So 10 years later, I returned to Miami and I graduated as a new student, as a senior, with all the kids I went to first grade with.
Yeah.
So I reconnected with John.
Dude.
You know?
That's crazy.
So it was a return to like, and then here we are, like learning to surf. I had been like growing my own pot in Maui and became an outdoors person and spoke 3 languages. Whereas all the people in my senior year, they're all wearing the same Nautica t-shirt, the same Cuban links. They looked like clones of each other. And me and my brother looked at each other wearing our Hawaiian shirts on a Friday, like, you know, our parents are rad. We got to see the world, and they really expanded our horizons, and we became worldly citizens.
Damn.
So I hit the karmic lottery with my family.
The karmic
Lottery.
Yeah,
I feel like I was very lucky to be born into that family, and very much inspires me to have a family of my own so I can pass on the love and the learning and, you know, just bring humans into this world that I think will have an impact.
What was the name of the school you went to in Miami?
I went to several schools, but Palmetto High School was the school I graduated from.
What about when you were young, elementary?
It was Pinecrest Elementary.
Pinecrest Elementary, cool.
Are you familiar with Miami? Or?
No,
Oh.
but this is great, man. This is like watching a movie of your life. It's awesome.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
So you're going to Pinecrest and everything. You get home and there's no drama. There's no yelling or fighting happening in the household.
No.
It's peaceful.
The only times my family fought was over money.
Money.
And my father not being around that much. He traveled a lot. And
what do you travel for?
So in Chile, we had a farm outside of the city, and he farmed. He was an organic farmer in Chile.
What was he farming?
Everything from, you know, tomatoes, lettuce, cucumbers. We had horses, we had cows, goats, pigs, chickens. He just really wanted to bring the organic movement to Chile when no one knew what organic food was.
Yeah.
And my mom worked in the city at a private school. Just, it was so expensive to go that she worked there just so we could have the education of an international school with the sons and daughters of all the ambassadors. And like, you know, one of my good Chilean friends, his great-great-grandfather was the president and his father was the president. So he was a senator, and I had lunch with him not too long ago when I went visited Chile, and we had lunch at the White House and I saw the president. So like, by putting us in this position with all these very influential people from around the world was an incredible opportunity and upbringing. And I really want to thank my parents for telling us as children to follow what we loved, and the money would come. Follow your passions, follow your passions, follow your passions. So we all do what we love now.
Would you say your father loved the shipping industry?
No. So that's why he sold and quit and moved out. He wanted to be a farmer.
Farming.
And when we moved to Maui, it was really hard to get property there and get in with the kind of the local. So what he did, he bought a sailboat and learned to sail and decided to sail the South Pacific. So in the summertime, my brother and I would fly down to wherever he was at, and we'd hop from island to island to island, being deckhands and learning, you know, diving in Tonga and like going in the jungles in Samoa and, you know, spearfishing in Fiji. And so that type of education is more rich than anything you could really get in a school. So I'm very grateful that we had the opportunity to do these things.
Danny.
They really forged my family and how we are. And, you know, now I continue to travel. It's like in me.
Yeah, but before we talk about all that, we got to throw back a little bit more here, because we're painting a really beautiful picture of your life.
Thank you.
Great. So you went to Chile after Miami, right? For just a short time.
Yeah.
How long?
So Brazil was 6 months, and then we learned Portuguese, and then we moved to Chile for 5 years.
Oh, Brazil for 6 months. You went to school in Brazil.
We did.
Did you speak the language?
No, it was hard. I remember getting chased around the school and getting beat up and trying to tell them, time out, this is not a fun game. And they're like, we don't care. Like,
they beat you up?
Yeah.
Who did? The Brazilians?
Yeah.
The kids?
It was, so I joined judo.
Yeah.
I've done martial arts a lot of my life just to adapt to the times.
Yeah.
They were way more passive in Chile. They were more conservative there. And then when I got to Hawaii, you had to deal with the Tongans and Samoans and the Hawaiians. And,
right, because they don't like the Americans.
There's the Haole,
sometimes.
You know? Yeah, so becoming a minority there really toughened me up. I'm grateful for it. But you know, my brother and I adapted, and you make friends, and you adapt, and learn the cultures, and you show aloha, and you realize, we can all adapt. And that is, in the Navy SEALs, I'm sure they teach that. It's like one of the greatest things a human being can do is adapt to any given situation.
Where'd you go to school in Brazil?
It was called Escola Panamericana da Bahia, and it was also an international school, but we were only there for a little while. But I think what the real gem was, and you might be digging into this, since we're talking about pivotal moments, is I remember wanting to be Indiana Jones as a kid.
Yeah.
That is the life. So I was like, who is he? He's an archaeologist. So I studied archaeology. And then I found out, like, Harrison Ford didn't have to shoot that whole movie all at once. Like, it was shot in segments. And what I realized was it was when my grandfather came home with a camera you could plug into a VCR, one of the first home camcorders. So we'd shoot and then we'd stop and then we'd shoot and we'd stop. And when I watched it all pieced together, something clicked in me. It's like, I can tell a story and change reality. So who made Indiana Jones? It was Spielberg. I want to be Spielberg. So at 7, I wanted to be a movie director. And that has been my path ever since. Wow. And that's why I'm producing videos now and telling stories.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the direction you were going, but I figured I'd share that because I think I'm very fortunate that I found a calling at a young age in a very unique way and stuck to it. And I think that's been the fountain of my life fortune, is to follow my passion and the roads that it's led to.
That's a wonderful highlight part of your life. That's like
I think so too.
A positive pivotal moment, we'll call it. So you're in Brazil for a little while, off to Chile for 5 years, at the new school, and you probably spoke a little bit more of the language at that point.
Yeah, so we learned Portuguese in Brazil because at 7 you're able to pick this stuff up. You know, all the kids no one spoke English, so like if we wanted to play with the kids in the building, we had to learn how to speak Portuguese, to play soccer and games and things like that. And then when we got to Chile, I had to switch from Portuguese to Spanish. So we were put in a Chilean school and we had to learn Spanish quick. And then eventually when we went to the international school, they spoke English there.
Perfect.
So, but at this point,
what was it like going to school there every day?
It was amazing.
It was good?
That school in Chile was special.
How was things at your house? Were your parents still arguing about money?
A little bit.
What'd your mom do?
My mom worked at the school.
She did?
But she used to be
Was she always working at the school?
No, my mom is amazing. She's a savvy businesswoman.
Yeah.
Was very strict in a good way. And of course I butted heads with her when I was a teen. But she crushed it in commercial real estate. She crushed it when anything she decided to do, she crushed it. So she was a business management person and in the administration at that Chilean private school.
Yeah.
And they kept their finances separate. So my dad bought the farm and he spent a lot of time on the farm, and my mom was with us, like kind of working at the school, and he'd come home on the weekends and we'd go out and camp and we'd do some fun stuff. So all in all, like the years that my parents were together was very beautiful, and it was a very cohesive family unit.
What did your parents like to do together for themselves while you were growing up? Did they like to cook together? Did they like to go out to movies together?
Tremendous cooking in our family. My grandma was Italian. My mom loved to cook. When we had dinner, we wouldn't even answer the landline. We weren't allowed to answer the phone because every night we had dinner together. And that is something that is still ingrained in me. My future queen will be someone that cooks for me. That is something huge. But I cook. My brother cooks. My sister's a phenomenal cook. My mom. Food was the cohesive thing that brought us all together, But they were very good about doing stuff with us. We'd play poker at night to learn that. We would go hiking and camping and national forest. We'd get out and do things. Some of the best moments I can remember was when we'd all go skiing together.
Where did your father grow up?
He grew up in Tampa, Florida.
Tampa. Is he still around?
No, he passed away about a year and a half ago.
From what?
From a very torturous cancer that left him half paralyzed. And when my parents split, he married a woman and he lived in Brazil for 20 years.
Your parents split?
They did. And when I was in college. Yeah.
And you went to high school back in Florida?
Yeah, and then I went to FSU.
College at FSU, Florida.
Yeah, I stayed in Florida, yeah.
And then your parents, how long were they married?
They were 25 years together.
What do you think happened there?
My dad wasn't present for my mom, and he kept choosing adventure after adventure after adventure, and she'd rather love him in small doses than not be with him at all. It was her first love. She was my Catholic background. My grandmother was a virgin when she got married. My mom was a virgin when she got married. My sister's been with her high school sweetheart. So very loyal, very, there was just an eventual disconnect with them. They had trouble when we were young in Florida.
What kind of trouble?
I mean, just the relationship was very, very rocky. They were considering divorce, and then instead...
What made it rocky, though? Was it like the fact that they were disconnected and they were arguing?
I think so. Yeah. I don't think my mom was being showered with the love and romance that she wanted and deserved. And my dad wasn't really that capable of that, but he was exciting in the sense that when he was around, he was amazing, but he wasn't around that much. He was so driven by adventure and trying to help people. Suffering really bothered him. So he was a very devout Zen Buddhist and very into spirituality. That's why I'm into it, because when we were 10, he taught us how to meditate. And then whenever I'd go into his office, he had all these books. And at the time, I was like a spiritual seeker. I was eating bread and reading the Bible to get ready for my first communion, because that's what we did. And I would go to church with my grandmothers. But like, I didn't get it. There's something about the church that was just really weird to me. And I was like, I didn't understand the Latin chants and things like that. But when I go to my dad's study, I go hang out and be like, Dad, what's the story with the elephant with all the arms? He's like, oh, that's Ganesh, and this is Hinduism, and they believe in reincarnation. Ah, who's the fat guy that's laughing? Oh, that's Buddha, and he meditated and found enlightenment. And and then there would be one with this guy with this shiny face with light coming out of it, and I'm like, what's up with that? He's like, oh, this is a book by Carlos Castaneda, and these are the shamans. They use plant medicines to do things in the spiritual realm. And I'm thinking, this is way cooler than church with grandmama. So at that age, when it was time for my first communion, I went to my grandmother and my mom and said, I am not ready to take the body of Christ. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I just don't believe. I'm not there. So I had a very early spiritual awakening thanks to my dad. Yeah. So anyways, he was a very devout Zen Buddhist, and he was very into living off the grid, building his own house with his hands, growing his own food, being that expat that he always was. So I kind of took on a lot of that.
Wow. What an influence he had on you.
And tremendous.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, he's your person you looked up to. You loved him.
Yeah.
He was exciting, good role model.
Yeah, and he was my friend.
And your friend.
He was very cool. Like, this tattoo on my arm I got when I was 14 because he got the same one in Samoa. Wow. It's a Samoan band.
Damn.
So we had that bonding moment.
People at 14 got a tattoo. You were first.
Pretty wild. My mom thought it was fake for a while. It's pretty gangster going to school, and everyone's like, wow, what's up with this guy?
That is gangster.
My mom, she said, you're going to regret this. You're not going to be able to get the job you want. You're not going to be able to date the woman that you want. And I just said, well, it's not the job that I want or the woman that I want. She's like, damn it. No, I guess, my dad was sort of a rebel, and I feel I followed in his footsteps. And, when it was time to experiment with psychedelics and mushrooms and weed and Maui, I would ask him first. I'm like, hey, what do you know about magic mushrooms? And he would say like, well, not that I know a lot about them, but set and setting. Make sure, and if you're going to try this, do
5 rights.
Yeah.
Right people, right mindset, right amount.
Got it.
There's 2 more. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I had a very special family.
Maui. You're there this was after Chile.
Yeah.
How long were you in Maui, you say?
5 years.
5 years. So 5 years and 5 years.
Yeah. So this Maui forged me as a man.
Tell us more about Tell us about what was the biggest challenge you faced in Maui on a personal level?
Oh, man.
Did you go through any dark periods where you're there?
It was a rough period in the beginning because I came from a very conservative private school in Chile where I was kind of super popular and I was tough compared to everyone else. Like, no one talked to me.
Because you knew judo.
Yeah, and everywhere I moved, I studied a different style of martial arts. So, and then I moved to Maui, and then it's to a public school system that was ranked like 48th in the nation. Mm. And I don't know if you've been out to Hawaii, but they speak a dialect called Pidgin. Mm. It's like, "Ho, cuz why? What you say, brah? Like, can you troll?" Like, I don't know what you're saying. It was a bit of massive.
Can I throw a baseball?
Yeah, basically, can you throw?
Yeah,
yeah, you can troll.
Yeah,
shoot cause how wide, you know the kind. So I'm embellishing it a bit, and then my accent's completely off. But it for me, my brother and my sister were like, we don't understand. I'd never actually met a Filipino in my life. Much less all the melting pot of cultures that you find in Hawaii. And as a white kid, it was very hard to get integrated into that. And on the bus, like they would tease me. I didn't care, but when they teased my brother, I would step up.
What's your brother's name?
Drake.
Where's he at?
Drake's in Florida. He's a general manager of a Marriott hotel in Fort Lauderdale, and he's married to a wonderful Chilean woman.
It's dope.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So in trying to protect him, I'd get beat up by the Hawaiians. Okay. So I trained martial arts even harder, did more reps. And then what I learned was how not to get into fights. Mm. And then having a background in Portuguese and Spanish, I was able to pick up the Pidgin and tan pretty well. So we adapted. Yeah, we integrated. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like Jamaican patois, right? Yaman pasila bomboklat, all that stuff. But Maui was great because I really got into nature and learning to surf and almost drowning a few times. And
you almost drowned.
Yeah. Just not knowing the ocean that well and just trying to get big waves. And
Any other near-death experiences?
yeah, there were those, several times almost drowned. I got jumped once in San Diego, and these guys jumped me and cracked my skull with a skateboard.
What was that?
We were arguing over a taxi, just a bunch of drunk people. And so that was
alcohol.
That was the moment where I found out, like, I think in every person's life, they come to a point where pivotal moment where they realize they're not quite invincible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure you have your moment in your story. But that was the moment where, like, I couldn't get out of bed for a few days in the ICU, and I could feel my brain dripping into, like, my ear socket. And it took a few months to recover from that, and it humbled me in the best of ways. Sometimes those are some of the best moments we have, those dark kind of pivotal moments.
Well, how old were you when that happened?
I was 27. Yeah.
27. That was post-divorce. Let me ask you this. You're living in college. You're in college. Where did your parents live when you were going to college?
They're in Miami.
So across the state, right? FSU's here.
Correct.
Miami's here.
8-hour drive, yeah.
8-hour drive. Did that impact you? Like, because you were far away.
Not really. I could see the signs and the writing on the wall. And my parents were very open with me, and I'd have conversations with my dad and conversations with my mom, and I could see the struggles. And they were wonderful parents, because they would talk about, like, listen, we're selling our house for this much. We're planning about buying this next house. What do you kids think? Or we might move to Maui. What do you kids think?
That's great.
These are the situation I'm having with your father right now, and what do you think? And they gave us the authority we always had a voice.
Yeah.
And I think that's incredibly important in families.
Dang.
So, I was already out of the house. It was really hard on my younger sister, Gina, who's 4 years younger.
Janina,
yeah.
Janina,
yeah.
Oh, Janina.
Janina.
And where's she at?
She is in Atlanta.
Doing what?
She is an editor for Simply Buckhead, a popular magazine out there in Atlanta.
You like her?
I love her.
Cool.
I love my family. She's brilliant. She's way sharper than I am. She's always had her shit together, always was very good at grades and good at everything, had her life planned out. Yeah. And then she had kids, and she got thrown for a loop.
You're an uncle.
Yeah, so I have, like, a nephew, a niece, and then a recently born niece named Camila, who was born 3 months ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Freaking awesome.
It's cool, yeah.
When do you get to see him next?
Hopefully soon, man. Hopefully soon. I haven't made any plans to go out and see them yet. There's a lot going on here, but yeah, it's kind of nice to go down memory lane with the family and the whole background. And I feel very fortunate, growing up. Until I had certain roommates, post-college when I lived in San Diego, that I realized that, shit, not everyone had a really nice family unit. In fact, there's a lot of people that just did not have a father around or a mother around, or when they did, they weren't loved properly. And now it's, if you study psychology, you just get to know people really deep. You can see how much our parenting has affected who we are and how we make choices and how we react to things, So sharing my family story is great. It makes me feel great, and that makes me want to have a family in the future. How was it growing up with your brother and sister? It was great. I mean, I was kind of a dick to my brother.
How come?
I was the alpha, and if you argued, it was like I was a little bit of a temper tantrum kind of kid, growing up.
Yeah.
My brother is a little more sensitive in that regard.
Have you made amends?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. When we were in college, we went to college together. Yeah. And he lived with me. And he actually joined a company I was working for. I was selling books door to door every summer throughout college. And he joined one summer. And it was really, really tough on him. It was very difficult. He wanted to quit, and I'd have to give him a pep talk every night. And finally, I said, listen, I can't keep coaching every night. I'm actually in charge of 40 kids. I was the organization leader at that point. And I'm like, I got to pep talk everyone. And I love you to death. You're my brother. But tonight, you decide. You either stay or you go. I will love you either way. But no more pep talks. This is a decision that you're going to make. And he decided to stay and stick out the summer. And he was all fired up the next day. He drove away from the breakfast spot and got in a car crash. So he surmounted that adversity. And I mean, I always loved him. But that summer, I believe, was pivotal. I gained a respect for him in a way that made me love him even more. And our relationship has just gotten deeper and deeper and deeper. Same with my sister. We've just gotten deeper and deeper. Same with my mom, So I'm very grateful for that.
Where's your mom at now?
She is in a place called Highlands, which is in North Carolina, kind of in between Asheville and Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a beautiful area.
How far is that from? Oh, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say they filmed The Last of the Mohicans there. If you remember that movie.
Oh yeah,
the big granite mountains and the forest and the waterfalls, and so she's in a very beautiful place.
yeah.
Yeah.
What's she doing over there? Retired life?
Yeah, she remarried very quickly too to a friend of theirs from college, a guy that we knew.
Yeah.
And so both my parents remarried, and they were very happy in their relationships. And her husband is the polar opposite of my father. Yeah, so it's really fascinating.
He's a laid back dude. Not too much for adventure.
No, not at all. Same job for 30 years, very stable. Showered my mom with flowers and romance, which was lacking from the relationship with my dad.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's interesting how that happens. Sometimes when we get out of a relationship, we choose the opposite. But yeah, it's great. Like, he treats her well, he loves her well, he provides, and that makes me happy.
So you're living in San Diego, right? I think that a lot happened in San Diego for you.
17 years.
17 years
in La Jolla.
Yeah. What kind of people did you hang out with when you were there?
Wow, it shifted over the years. In the beginning, it was people that I met through being a bartender and being a freelance videographer in like the nightlife scene, and I got a lot of different groups of friends. I had a Brazilian group of friends, I had the surfers, I had the industry people, and then eventually, a pivotal moment was when I went to Burning Man in 2016, and that was a life-changing moment. And then I had a festival crew, and they were like some of my closest friends because of the moments we spent there. And so yeah, those are the type of people I hung out with out there. There's quite a varied amount of. I've got some really good friends that were Navy SEALs as well. So I think the upbringing of living in so many places allows a person to have a variety of different relationships and friends from different walks of life.
Do you find yourself in any ruts living in San Diego? Or is it fairly smooth?
So San Diego is such a remarkable place. They call it America's finest city for a reason. Yeah, the weather is exceptional. The food is great. It's you have a lot of variety of different people. I found out, and later on, I tried leaving twice, and I kept coming back. And what I tell people is I was there for 17 years, but it was more like I lived the same year 17 times. I got to a point where like life was very easy, and I lived by the beach, and I surfed, and I had my community, and I helped my ex like buy a yoga studio and participated in that for a while. And it was
who's this ex?
Her name's Alina, and we dated for 5 years and lived together for 5 years.
Dang.
And up until now, she's been the love of my life. And
where is she today?
She is still in San Diego.
What is she doing?
She is running the yoga studio. Yeah, and doing retreats.
Have you talked to her recently?
Yeah, we're very good friends.
Friends?
Yes.
And she's the love of your life? She was.
Yeah, up until this point, yeah.
What happened?
It was a very cathartic breakup for me.
What's that word mean? I forget.
It means it really shook me up emotionally. So if I'm going to go into the story, I'm going to kind of allude to my pivotal moment of the biggest change in my life. What happened a year and a half ago, where we had lived a very beautiful 5-year relationship, very good communication, lots of love. And we lived in one bedroom almost the entire time, and it was great. We had a beautiful dog named Maple, and was living a very nice life. And I believe what led me into a complacency of not really pushing the needle as far as what my purpose is, my biggest purpose and ambition is in life. And I was supporting her cause so much because I thought that's what a man's supposed to do. But a man's supposed to have his cause, and you're supposed to support each other. So I got a call from my father. He all of a sudden collapsed, paralyzed from the waist down in Brazil, and found out it was cancer. It was melanoma of the spine. He rushed into surgery. They tried to yank all of it out. And I said, do I need to come down there? He goes, no, let me call you if I really, really need you, like in case of emergency. I'm like, okay. So I was in Kauai celebrating my girlfriend's birthday with her mother, and I got the call. It's like, son, I really need you. I'm relapsing, and it's bad. So I went down to help him. And in that absence, a lot of stuff surfaced for my ex. Money kind of dictated safety for her in a way, and there were certain ways her father didn't show up for her, and there are a lot of ways that I wasn't showing up in my full masculine either. There's always two in the relationship, and I own the things I didn't show up for, but there's also things that were projected onto me that I believe her trajectory went really fast, and mine was a lot slower, and she was in love with my potential, but didn't believe my capacity. And I believe that my capacity and potential were one and the same. our timing was just off about what we really wanted. So as I'm in Brazil, I got back, and it was to see my dad suffer and to carry him into wheelchairs and help change his diapers. The most capable man I knew, and he was deteriorating because they kind of botched the surgery. It was rural Brazil, and he had screws in his spine, and he was suffering from extreme pain. And instead of getting better while I was there, like it got worse. And I was like, well, I have a life back in San Diego. So I came back to that life, and then she said, we need to take space. I've been thinking a lot while you were gone, and I really want to sort of feel this independence out, and this is how you're not showing up. So I sat up all night. It was a jarring moment because I just wanted to come home and ground.
Great.
Holding it strong emotionally for my dad the whole time.
Yeah.
And I sat up all night, and I was like, okay, do my core values and fundamentals, what I really want in life, align with hers? And at the end of the night, I was like, yeah, I want to have children with this woman. I think, she's checked all the boxes. We've always had a really, really amazing relationship. So we took some space. And after a little while, she's like, you're doing all the right things. Like, we don't even have to take space anymore. Like, you're crushing it. You listened. You're doing the things that I wanted. It was taking the lead as a masculine, paying for more things, just being more safe, showing her that, like, yeah, I have the capacity to raise a family with you, and I have the capacity to make a certain amount of money that will make you feel safer.
Just be an adult.
Being a fucking adult.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of just like surfing all the time and like, smoking weed. And I get it. So my dad was doing really bad. So I go, listen, now that things are better, I need to go back and help my father. Will you support me emotionally? Because the first trip she wasn't. I knew something was up. She's like, I got you. And I went down there, and she was supportive, and he was getting worse, and it was really hard. And when I got back from that trip, within 3 or 4 days, she goes, we're done. And I was like, I thought everything was going well. She's like, well, one day it's good, one day it's not, one day it's good. She goes, I really feel that this is not it. And I really want to be independent, and I really want to live a different life. So we decided that it was best for her to keep the place we lived in because our dog was aging, and she also lived close to the yoga studio. So it meant me leaving the house I loved, leaving the woman I loved, the dog I loved, the yoga community that I loved. And then Maple was dying. Our dog was dying, so Maple died. And then I went back to Brazil, and my father was like, on this trip, you're coming to help me die. I'm done. It's been a year. It's not getting better. Son, I need you to help me because no one else will understand that this isn't the end. We're deep. We had a deep spiritual connection. And what I found out was in Brazil, they don't have palliative care, no hospice. So I show up, and he's like, where's the fentanyl? I'm ready. I'm like, I know this is not how it's going to be. Even though like we had enough morphine to kill a fucking elephant, I go, I don't think this is the right thing to do right now. He goes, no, just that building has 15 floors. Oh, just get me to the top floor. He was ready. So I really was like diving deep into like, God, I will hold your hand as you pass, and I will do this for you, but it has to be done correct. So I went and saw a friend of mine.
What is correct?
From a spiritual and legal standpoint, because I talked to a Brazilian friend of mine, and he goes, listen, karmically, like that's going to have repercussions, and you'll do 30 years in Brazil if they catch you helping your dad die. So I talked to my brother and sister, and we're like, the last Hail Mary is to get him back to the U.S. for professional medical care. And he'd never wanted to come back to the States, but at this point he finally said, I am open to whatever you guys want to do. So I'm like, this is what we're going to do. One last adventure, Dad. Happy. One last adventure. We're going to go back to the United States. That way, if they can stop the pain, because the pain was just what was killing him. And then they gave him way too many drugs, so he was hallucinating. So I came in and said, we got to drop the methadone. We got to drop the morphine, get him back to a state of consciousness. But then it's like this balance between the pain and like losing his cognitive abilities. And it was really rough because I have a 15-year-old half sister in Brazil, and his wife is my age, and they're suffering very bad, watching him fall apart. And she was a godsend because she was cooking and cleaning him up, and like I'd wake up in the middle of the night to move him. So anyways, it was going to cost close to $80,000 to bring him back to the United States, and we didn't have that money. So me and my brother and sister rallied, and we did a GoFundMe. And I made videos, and we raised enough money to negotiate me going as the assistant medical escort. And in the meantime, we brought him to a private hospital in Florianopolis where he could get good enough to fly. And it's supposed to be 2 or 3 days. And I was there for 14, laying on the couch in his hospital room where he died on me several times, and I brought him back to life. in the meantime, I called my ex for a little bit of support, and she had already moved on, and she was in Colorado dating some guy, and like, so it was like it was this. I remember being in that hospital room, just like, what has happened to my life?
Purgatory, dude.
Purgatory. In the middle, I'm like, well, I know one thing: I have to help my father in this passing. So we raised the money, we flew him back. We got to the hospital, and they're like, he's a mess, pneumonia and necrosis and like UTIs and all these things, and he stopped eating. They're like, we can put him on heavy antibiotics for 12 days. At this point, he's trying to rip out the sutures and the needles and trying to climb out of bed. So we're like, no, we're going to bring him back to my sister's house and do hospice. And my mom got to see him for the first time in 15 years. My brother and sister were there. You know, my nephew got to see him, and he passed away the next day with all of us in front of him, you know, and breathing his last breath. So it was really cathartic, you know, it was just hard. And then, you know, shortly after, Maple passed away, and, you know, San Diego I was like, well, I mourned. I spent, you know, a week or two in a cabin in the woods after he had passed, just sitting, you know, in silence. And I couldn't even drink coffee. I couldn't even stimulate my system with anything. I just had to grieve, cry, hike, and be still and quiet for a while. And then finally it's like, okay, now I got to pick up the pieces of my life. So I flew back to San Diego, and flying into San Diego was the first time I wasn't excited to come home, because I was home without a home. And to you know, rent a house and buy furniture and to start a new life was just not, no, I couldn't even fathom that. So sleeping on the floor of my office and sleeping on couches, like not knowing what the next step quite was, but being still enough to allow kind of like the unexpected and unanticipated to show up. And ended up going to Bali, which is kind of a very synchronistic thing. Ended up in Bali for just a little while, but on the flight back, I got a call, and the call was from my buddy Max, who works for Aubrey here in town, and he's his videographer. And he just said, like, listen, our podcast guy is stepping down, and, you know, we need someone very specific to fill the role. And I don't know if you're interested or even capable, but I thought of you first, because they had a festival called Arcadia, and Arcadia had a lot of issues. They had to move location, and it was kind of a really difficult endeavor. And I decided to show up my camera, film, didn't ask for anything, just gave him the footage. And Max said, I saw how you showed up at Arcadia. And at the time, I didn't have any expectations of what that showing up meant, or what it was going to have, the significance of that.
Yeah.
The reverberations of that. But he said that, and he goes, and that was like I'm like, well, that's a fuck yes. I never thought I'd move to Austin. I'm landlocked, but let's do it, you know? And then a few months later, he's like, okay, come out and, you know, train and do the interview. And, you know, I knew Aubrey, so he's like, no, Derek doesn't have to interview. We'll just hire him. And I flew back to San Diego, and my car was stolen. My car had the keys to all my storage units. At the time, I was in between couches. It had like all my documents, my passport, all my Burning Man clothes, which was kind of sucked. And it was very fucking clear. The universe is like, your chapter here is over. You know, it's done. So everything got stripped away to create room for, which is now a year later, I went through the total death, and then now I went through the rebirth, and I'm like the happiest I've ever been since, you know, before the breakup, and thriving and loving my community here and loving my lifestyle and doing some of the best work I've ever done. And it's incredible what like a year and a half difference can make, you know, in our lives. So that, to make a short story really long, that is the whole kind of, you started with a breakup, but all these things that happen to everyone in life, they kind of all happen at once. So it's a real challenge to me to be like, you know, you've grew up meditating, and you had the good family, and you've given advice to people, and you have all the tools. Now use them. You know, I was refused to go into a depression. You know, the difference between grief and depression is kind of like pain and suffering. Pain and grief is inevitable, but suffering and depression is, we talked about earlier, you can make a choice whether you want to wallow in that same movie over and over, or if you want to grow out of it. We do have a choice to change our destinies, and you know, it was hard, and, you know, I grieved as hard as I could. I think that's really important for anyone out there going through some very hard times. Feel the feels, feel the feelings, because if you sweep under the rug or try to, you know, put them away or bypass them, they're going to come back, and they might come back in the form of physical health or somatic, you know, problems or diseases or traumas. You know, you end up dating the same person over and over and over again, you know, without breaking the mold. So long tangent, but here we are. I'm sitting next to you today talking about the most pivotal moment in my adult life.
How have you decided to honor your father's life moving forward?
That's a really good question, and I appreciate that a lot. He visited me a lot in the meditations. In fact, when I was younger, he said, after I die, I want you to throw a party. And 14 days after I die, look for a sign. Because he's a very devout Buddhist. And in the Buddhist Bardo, when you pass, there's a period of time where the soul kind of becomes part of the ineffable. Like the drop dissolves into the ocean, and different belief systems have this, the passing of the spirit. So I'd meditate daily, and he would show up in my visions very clear. Every time I was meditating in front of a tree, for some reason the sun would pass, and the trickling of the light through the branches would touch my eyes, and I knew it was his energy. And I had a really rough night. So coming back to San Diego, I had to go to my old place to grab a few things, and I wanted to see my dying dog. So I went, and my ex was out of town, and there was a dog sitter there, so I couldn't spend quality time with my dog. And there was a place where I wrote notes to my ex, and there was a note there from a guy saying, "Thanks for dinner, XOXO." And I didn't realize she was in this serious relationship with this new guy, and went to the bathroom, and there was like a pregnancy test in the trash. And it just shook me. All the healing I had done in the cabin in the woods it got shaken up. So I was like, you know what? I deserve to smoke weed, because it's been months, and I deserve to smoke. And for anyone who's smoked a little too much, I smoked too much that night. And instead of feeling better, I went into like this dark depression of like despair. Like, you can't keep a relationship. You can't keep your home. You can't even help your father from dying. I went into such a negative space. I took a cold shower. I was shadow boxing. I'm like, how do I get out of this? It's like, meditate. All the meditation that I'd been doing, reading my father's old Zen books, was the one thing that would like help. So I sat down to meditate, and crying and desperation, and then it kind of leveled out. And then all of a sudden, like, the cannabis started to work with what's exciting about what's coming up. And in this moment, it was almost like the heavens parted, and I heard my dad's voice clear as day. He's like, "It's okay, Chico. It's going to be fine. You're going to be great." And it was almost like the image of him wasn't even there anymore. It was like, if anyone's in 5-MeO DMT, there's this moment that you kind of experience the ineffable. And it felt like that. It felt like the drop had finally become part of the ocean. And it was the 14th day he showed up. So to honor him, I just know he was a badass in life, and to honor him, it's to take this blessing that's been given to me in this new life, and to live my best possible life, to follow my dreams, and which is making films, and to help tell stories that really touch people. And I have like this crystal he gave me when I was young, and I meditate with it, and we have this big Texas eclipse ceremony coming up, this big festival.
April 8th.
Yeah, April 8th. So his birthday is on the 6th, and so the fact that it's a once in a lifetime event, there's not gonna be another solar eclipse for like that in totality in North America. Go. Yeah, and it's
got the website pulled up on my browser,
so you'd get it. Yeah, it's because I went to the one in Oregon in 2017, and it was such a beautiful ceremony. It was so different, and seeing the totality, it's changing. You see the sun and the moon all the time, but when the moon gets in front of the sun, and the weather drops 10 degrees, and you can see the stars in the middle of the day, and you can see the fire around the moon. It's mystical. So the fact that I'm here in Texas, and it's going to be an hour away, the week of my dad's birthday, the lineup is all the music I love.
Yeah.
And the whole world's converging, is coming to us. Like, the population of Austin is going to double that week. They've already declared a state of emergency. So those are in Austin. Get your provisions a week before, because it's going to be bonkers.
That's good to know. That's
yeah.
a good tip.
Yeah.
Emergency. Wow.
I know it's extreme, but they want to make sure, because they're expecting literally millions of people that are coming to Central Texas.
Get your tickets now, folks.
Yeah, get your tickets.
Wow.
Yeah, it'll be, if you love electronic music and great there's a lot of great speakers.
Adrian Grenier is going to be there. The guy from Entourage.
Yeah.
Nuts. Yeah. It's going to be good. Yeah. Wow, I'm getting pumped. I wasn't sure if I was going to go, but I think we're going to go now.
It's going to be a massive ceremony.
It's like, how can we not go now?
It's right here.
It's amazing.
Hard. Yeah.
All right, cool. So let's wrap this up with some questions that I like to ask all of our guests here. What if you could see your dad today and just send him a message, what would you say to him?
I'm fucking crushing it. Thank you so much for raising me the way you did. And I love you very much.
Yeah. What would you say to the younger you if you could see yourself as a 5, maybe 10-year-old boy? What would you say to him?
Buy Bitcoin.
That is a very practical statement.
There's a lot of things that I want to say, but it's like the path. I would have said, pay more attention, maybe do a little more diligence in your filmmaking, but the path is so perfect. the hedonic lifestyle and chasing waves and chasing these experiences has made for really good stories that I am now at an age that I can turn those into films. So as far as like changing your life, it's like, hey, don't worry, you're going to be much cooler when you grow up.
Yeah. Trust the process.
That's a good one.
And live intentionally.
Yeah, I like those. Those would have been really good advice. Follow your passion, do what you love, be present. You have the choice to make it to change your life by making positive choices.
You have the choice to change your life by making positive choices. Yeah. Let's say 300 years from now, your family's catching up on this, and you want to send them a message. What would you like to share with them, if not the world? What's the legacy you want to leave on the planet?
Yeah, follow your heart, live intensely. Don't take any moment for granted. And things are just as crazy now as they will be in 300 years. Crazier in some ways, and actually better in a lot of ways too. Yeah, that's beautiful. I never thought of that. Like, what kind of legacy do I want to leave for people? Just know that I lived and loved very intensely, and I'm very grateful for life.
Gratitude's the highest form of energy.
My God, it is.
Yeah. Who's one person you want to meet that you haven't talked to yet that's alive?
Ooh, that's alive? I would say Joe Rogan.
I know his address.
Yeah.
Read him.
We're just a few degrees away.
I bet one of our mutual acquaintances can connect you with Joe Rogan.
Absolutely. When my film is made and I want to promote it, that would be the call.
Maybe get him to be an actor on your film.
I think he would dig it.
Yep.
It's
something tells me that whatever you're going to make is going to be something that he would be a good actor at.
It was, yeah, or just the producer and to get behind it. It's funny to even talk about this. It's so weird because we're on a podcast, and what led me to where I'm at is when I was younger, I wanted to be an archaeologist. Remember? Yeah, I want to be Indiana Jones, which led me to reading a lot of Graham Hancock books. Yeah. He's for those of you who don't know, he's a really popular archaeologist that broke away from the mainstream idea that ancient cultures were way more advanced and way older than we ever thought imaginable. And then I was researching one of his stuff for my script, and he was on Joe Rogan's podcast. I go, what the hell is a podcast? The comedian, UFC commentator is interviewing Graham like that. It's like all these realms. I'm into comedy, I'm into UFC, and then I'm into archaeology.
And hunting?
Yeah.
Right? Like what?
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
So they had a 3-hour conversation that just shook me in the best of ways. So I started listening to a lot of Joe Rogan, which led me to this guy, Aubrey Marcus. And I really enjoy the way he was like one of the first guys to talk about psychedelics and ayahuasca on a public forum, which I had a long history with psychedelics, growing up in Maui and picking mushrooms from the fields and eating them and not knowing what a dose was. And just, that's how I feel like I met God and what changed me spiritually. But then Aubrey had this very good vocabulary, and he was very authentic as a man. So, and I started following Duncan Trussell and Chris Ryan and all these people that Rogan had kind of shown to me through his podcast. And there's something about Aubrey that I related to a lot. I think the balance between the spirituality, but also creating a business and selling it and having the foot in the default world and the foot in, deep spiritual esoteric teachings. And then during COVID, I was fired from the firm that I was working at because we had some disagreements. So I was like, well, I have time and I have the money and there's no Burning Man. And Aubrey had the mastermind called Fit for Service. And I was making videos for all kinds of people. Dom Perignon was one of my biggest clients, but like how many, big lavish events could I film that I was losing the zest and hunger in my work because it wasn't impacting people on the level that I wanted to impact. And then I was like, I want to work with Aubrey's audience. How do I get access to his people? Well, you pay for it. I joined the mastermind and I met this incredible community of people in Fit for Service. And it changed my life, and I never thought the ROI would be producing the podcast that influenced me and was so inspirational. But that's what ended up happening. But I had to lose everything for that to happen. So, and here we are sitting today, so it's because of Joe Rogan's podcast that led me to his podcast, that led me to this life, that led me to sitting on your show today, having this incredible conversation and getting to know you better and forging a friendship and an alliance here in Austin. And so I don't remember what the original question was, but Rogan would be awesome to sit down and talk to because there's so much in common, these commonalities. And I really think that his audience would really enjoy the films that I am creating.
last thing to tie it up here. Thank you so much for your incredible participation.
Thanks, man. This has been really fun. Yeah, I've had a blast. Yeah, this is great.
Who are you? And you can only answer this. This is one rule. I hate rules. You got to do it this time.
Cool.
You can only answer this in saying I am, and then fill in the rest. No wrong answer when it comes to length. You can take it as long as you want. I am.
So much comes.
Let it rip.
I am excited. I am grateful.
You're excited and grateful. It's freaking awesome, man.
I am love.
Yeah, rightfully so. You got a lot. You talked about potential, talked about capacity. You're in the environment that is rocket fuel for your potential and capacity, not just in the city that you live in such a supportive, grounded city, but also in your workplace, your immediate people that you're talking to, big thinkers, movers, shakers. You're igniting your life. You're 10xing your life by doing what you're doing. Keep up the good work, Derek. It's freaking awesome. It's fired up, to say the least. How do people get a hold of you?
Watch the Aubrey Marcus podcast, first of all.
Definitely subscribe.
That's my work, and I think you'd appreciate it. And at nomadic_perceptions on Instagram is probably the best way to get in touch. And reach out for anything. I'm an open book, and I love people, and I love connecting. And, I'm starting to look at real estate, and I know who to talk to. The man sitting next to me. There's no accidents. So
that's what's up.
That's what's up.
That's right. You know who to call. Well, folks, till next time, thanks so much for watching Greg Carlson, Pivotal Moments Podcast. Derek Smith, till next time, stay fired up. Cheers.
Much love.